Lemonaid, freshly brought to you by BlessVision Foundation. This episode is sponsored by Rotary Club of Kwai Chung. The views and opinions expressed in the following interview are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or position of BlessVision Foundation. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Lemonaid tonight. Well, identity crisis is the topics we usually talk about in previous episodes, and some of our guests also have the same problem, same situation they're encountering. Tonight, I have a special guest. She actually also facing and experienced identity crisis when she was in universities, and tonight, she will share with us how she overcome all this. And now, perfectly, actually, she got her job and she found herself. And she will share with us her story. And who she is Helen. And now she is a paralegal in Patricia Ho and Associates. Hello, Helen.
Hi, Carrie.
So great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, I know that before we start the interview, we chit-chat for a while. I know that was since you in the primary schools, you've been studying 4 schools, right? And this 4 schools not only in Hong Kong, but it's Beijing, Hong Kong, Beijing, Hong Kong. Well, what do you feel when you need to travel a lot since you're in primary? What is that feeling?
Yes, I think it's a mix of a bit of both. I remember when I was 7 years old, and I went to primary school for 2 years in Hong Kong, and then, my dad just suddenly announced, "Oh, we're moving to Beijing." And I had no idea where it was, what it was like. Yeah. And then I remember crying at home. It was a very sudden decision, right? And I was quite young. And I remember my aunt was at the house and she was consoling me. "Oh, don't worry, there's McDonald's in Beijing." And then after that, okay, then it's fine, I can go.
Okay, only the McDonald's can set you so happy.
Yeah, so, that was when I was 7. So, and there's been, a few other times after that, right? So after I moved to Beijing, it took some adjustments and I came back when I was 9 and, all these different stories, I guess, when I was young. I quite enjoyed it. There were times where it was very difficult, right? You're always adjusting to a new environment.
Yes, and friends.
And, there are always language issues. For example, I went to a local school for 2 years, and so my Chinese was better. And then my English wasn't very good when I moved to an international school in Beijing. I remember, for example, sitting in a classroom and not understanding anything and just, things like that. So, it takes some adjustments, but then there were also quite a lot of adventures, right? As a kid, it's fun to travel and, meet new people.
I see. So for all this school life from primary to until university, you have been experienced all this come to a business trip. As a student's business trip. Oh, how about finally you back to Hong Kong, right? You settle down in Hong Kong and you take the university in Hong Kong.
Yes.
What's happened after that?
So when I moved back to Hong Kong, I think I was 17, and I went to university here. At first, actually, I didn't really want to come back.
Yeah, sure. I think for sure.
Yes. But my mom at that time, she was saying, "Oh, why don't you just try?" Because I was born in Australia, so the plan was that in Australia, their school calendar is a bit different because it's in the southern hemisphere. So I think they start their school year in February instead of in the fall. So it's why don't you try half a year in Hong Kong, see if you like it. If you don't, then you can study in Australia. So, I first came back with kind of the mindset of, I might not want to be here, but I'll just try it. And then I, went through some identity crisis. But in the end, it was a place where I've learned to call home and, find my community here.
Wow. And when you... what is the identity crisis you would describe? I mean, when you came to Hong Kong before, actually, you have been in Hong Kong before. It's like Beijing, Hong Kong, Beijing, Hong Kong. But then in Hong Kong, settle down. Why you will have that identity crisis feeling? What makes you have that feeling?
Yeah. So I didn't really think about it so much when I was in secondary school, right? Because I was in an international school, everyone kind of felt the same.
Yes.
So when I first moved back to Hong Kong, it was difficult because I didn't necessarily call Hong Kong home because I spent my whole secondary school, my whole youth in Beijing. And you know, my family is from Hong Kong. I speak Cantonese. So on the outside, you know, people would assume that, you know, you're from Hong Kong, which is fine. But then inside, I always felt,
Beijing,
I always felt like I didn't entirely belong, or, you know, there were parts of me that I couldn't express, or if I would feel misunderstood, you know, all of these things that I had to navigate when I first came back to Hong Kong.
So how do you describe that feeling? And when you feel someone misunderstanding your meaning, what will you do, and what was your feeling on that time?
It was difficult because you always feel like you're being one part of yourself, but not your entire self. Or, you know, you'll be putting up a front of trying to connect with that person, but, you know, sometimes it's difficult to have to tell your whole life story, right? You're just meeting people on a day-to-day basis. So
Too long story, right?
And you don't want to explain so much because sometimes it's just not the right situation. Obviously, I'm happy to share my story. So there's always just kind of this like navigation of putting up a front and trying to connect with someone, but at the same time, maybe there are parts of myself that I wasn't able to fully articulate or express.
What you would do at that time to help yourself? I mean,
I think it took a lot of like self-exploration in terms of trying to come to terms with my and reflecting on my identity of who I was. You know, it wasn't always clear for me at that time, right? Part of it is also me trying to understand who I am. It's not just about expressing who I am to others, because I had to understand who I was myself first. Right. So part of the journey that I was learning at that time was trying to understand who I was, where I belonged, what my upbringing was, and how that was a part of my story that I had to accept and to appreciate and to utilize that in a positive way. So it was difficult, but it was also a very interesting experience, I guess, that it kind of took me on, that I didn't realize, right, when I first came back, that I would go through all of this. But ultimately, I'm glad that, you know, I took the time to kind of have that reflection.
Can I say that because before interview you mentioned there is a program was hosted by the organization Breakthrough. Can I say that the program also helped you a lot in help you to find yourself, who you are, where you belong, which groups you belong?
Yes, it almost felt like that program was designed just for me because it was the year of they were piloting the program.
Yeah, what is that program is about?
Yes, so Breakthrough in 2013 when I was in university, I think it was in like year 2 of the second year of my university, they had a youth integration program. It's called the Global Youth Connect that brought together university students. So both like Hong Kong students, students from mainland China, and you know anyone that was interested basically, and also the asylum seeker and refugee community, especially the youth in Hong Kong. And it was a psychosocial program. So you know we spent a lot of time together building community, trying to just share our stories, learn about each other's lives. We also, you know, went around to a lot of fun places in Hong Kong. We visited each other's homes in just kind of walking together and sharing that life story. And through that, I really enjoyed that program. Before, I had very little understanding of, you know, what a refugee is or you know, where they were from and kind of, the struggles that they're going through. And somehow I was able to connect with them on a very deep level. I think at the time, because I was going through my own personal identity crisis, so to speak, and I also knew and could and obviously refugees also struggle in Hong Kong because they face discrimination or they've lost their home, they can't see their family, and they're also trying to find themselves in Hong Kong or trying to make Hong Kong a home for themselves. So in a way, even though we had very different life stories and backgrounds, I felt very much connected to them in this process. And I was also interested in, through their lens, understanding what home means to them. What is their identity? What does, especially in kind of an age of globalization, right? Everything is so mobile.
Right.
And you have all these populations and cultures blending in together. I think through the refugee community, they were so open and welcoming that I felt like I could truly share my story and be accepted in the community.
Oh, so finally in this program, you said you connected with them deep level. It's this way you find you connect with them in the process. They're all seems going through the similar path, right?
Yes.
So it's so good to listen to Helen's sharing. And let's have a rest right now. And then coming back, we'll have Helen with us. And well, I believe this program developed a lot of things. So see you later. Back again, we have Helen with us. Well, last part, Helen said she really find groups finally that she feel deeply connected with. Okay, Helen, what did you do to further chase this sense of belongings?
Yeah, so I, throughout the year, I got to understand and learn about the refugee community in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
But I was also very driven and motivated to learn even more and to also understand kind of migration and forced displacement issues on a more global level. So I studied, I took my postgraduate studies at Oxford for a master's called the Master of Refugee and Forced Migration Studies.
Oh, wow, you're going to apply for Oxford?
Yes.
Wow, that's so talent. How do you do that?
So I had a very good mentor at that time. He was a university professor because at that time, I also didn't really think that, but he suggested, he also went to Oxford himself, before. So it's there's this really good program that, you might be interested. It's about refugee studies. So, at that time, I didn't even know it was a discipline that you can specialize in. So I learned about it more and thought, this was very relevant to my interest and passion in what I wanted to do for my career in the future. So I just applied.
How do you apply? I think everybody want to know, right?
It was actually easier than I thought because there was no interview process.
There's no interview process?
No interview process.
No exam, no
exams.
No exam, no test?
No test.
What did you do then?
All I had to do, if I can remember correctly, is to just write a written application, a personal statement to explain why you're interested in the program.
What did you write in? I'm so interested to know, what did you write in that application letter?
Yeah, I explained a little bit about what I mentioned actually before, about my upbringing and a bit of my identity crisis and how my identity crisis, and through that I was able to connect with the refugee community in Hong Kong, but also kind of from a more academic perspective, what that means in the framework of, say, globalization, of how we have shifts and adaptation and fragmentation of, this identity. So kind of more in an academic sense, also, what this population is going through as a result of these more, macro or global phenomenon. And then I think I talked a bit about my dreams and aspirations of what I want to do after my studies.
And also you share about your own feeling, how you feel about identity crisis, something you read on the application letter.
Yeah, I shared with them because...
So courageous and so bold. Yeah, and finally they accept you and to study the master.
Yes.
Well then, okay, after you study the master in Oxford, can you find what you want to find? I mean, the purpose of life, who you are. Who are you?
Yeah, those are big questions.
Sure.
It was a process. So yes, partly I would say, studying my postgraduate studies gave me a deeper understanding of some of these issues that I cared about and gave me kind of a more critical perspective of say, for example, refugee policies and what that looks like globally. What are some of the critiques on the way that we're responding to these issues? It definitely gave me a better conceptual framework to understand. But at that time, I think it also... Because I've been studying for so long, so many years since I was in kindergarten, I was so eager to work, actually. After my studies, I felt like, I was ready to work, to do something. Exactly. After taking in all this information, I needed to use it. So, and so part of my career has also been this continuous process of learning and, I think, and in the process also developing my own purpose and identity and all of that.
What is your purpose then of life? Wow, big questions, right?
So I think that's a big question. But I feel that the refugee population is something very close to my heart, just also because of my personal upbringing. So I do feel I have this devotion or this commitment to devote my career into serving this population. And through that, I think, to get people to understand these issues more from an advocacy perspective, but also currently in my job, I'm able to support them in the legal protection side of things. So I think there's a lot to explore within this, and there's still a lot for me to learn.
So and then before, what is the purpose of your life, and then who you are now? I mean, before you always, I heard is that sometimes I partially find myself here and partially find myself there, and seems belong to somewhere but seems not belong to somewhere. So then who are you right now? Can you answer these questions after all these studies, working?
Who I am. I think it's still a learning process for me. I think it's definitely beyond kind of national boundaries of, I'm from Hong Kong, or, I'm from Beijing, or, I work with refugees. It's a combination of many things. And what I've learned is who I am shouldn't be defined by, these identities, so to speak, in these categories. But I've learned to be more understanding of what's important to me, and I guess it's still an ongoing process. It's very difficult to say, who I am, so to speak, but I know, I've learned more about my values, what's important to me, what my priorities are. Hong Kong is now a place that I call home after, so many years of exploring. I know that even though Hong Kong is my home, but for me, my heart is also in so many other places, and that's okay too. And I think it's difficult for us, well, for me anyway, to really define who I am. But through my work or through meeting other people, I find bits and pieces of myself from being able to connect with others, from being able to learn lessons, And yeah, it's an ongoing process, I would say.
I really appreciate this answer because, yes, even now, many people are finding it's okay to admit that we are in the learning process. Everybody is. I am too. And because we cannot tell exactly who I am until I know who I am, right? Every day is a learning process. So I appreciate the honest answer. We do not need to pretend we know. If we're just in the process, then we just admit that we are in the process, and that's okay. So for everyone who's having the identity crisis, it's okay to have the crisis because everybody is in a finding. We are searching for direction. That's why we need to study. That's why we need to meet people. That's why we need to go this way and that place. We work here and work there. So I really appreciate Helen, but at least I can feel you, Helen. You have courageous to find. And you have courage to chase for what you want. When I talk to you, I'm so surprised that, what? You just go to Oxford by write an application letter, but you are so bold. At least you won't turn down this opportunity. You won't say no to yourself. You will try and you will write a letter and you will declare what you are now. And because of the honest, and you take the Master of Oxford. And that is so good. Yeah, thank you so much for Helen, your sharing today. So at the very last part, I usually ask my guests is, do you have any suggestion to whom who face the identity crisis? Or encouragement?
Encouragement. I would see it not as so much of a crisis. Right? To frame it as it's a process, it's a learning process, it's life experience.
Right.
It's identity, but, that can be a lot of different things too. You don't have to fit yourself into a certain box or to be able to articulate in a few sentences that I couldn't what your identity is. That's fine. I think part of that is just, it's a learning process, it's self-reflection, and it's okay to be more than, everyone is more than one identity, right? We're like made out of so many different aspects of our life. Yeah. So it's just about being able to tell our story and, being able to own up to, who we are and what we've been through and, where we're headed and all of these different things.
Yeah, that is so good. And just learn to embrace ourselves and to love ourselves. And this is the way to find who we are. And let us enjoy this process together. Thank you so much, Helen.
Thank you so much, Carrie.
Thank you, everyone. And good night. We'll see you next week.
Welcome to Cantonese time, 廣東話時間. Flora, I want to add some greens at my place. Do you know where I can get some plants?
You have asked the right person. As locals, we usually go to Thur, which is a famous flower market in Prince Edward.
But I don't have much budget for that. Are things in Thur expensive?
Not at all. Thur is famous for reasonable prices and variety. Let's go together.
Wow, there are so many options here. Do you have any suggestions?
How about 香草 like 薄荷, 迷迭香, 百里香, 檸檬香茅? I like them because they are very nice herbs.
Flora, what are they?
薄荷 is mint. 百里香 is thyme. 迷迭香 is rosemary. 檸檬香草 is lemongrass. These are all 香草 herbs commonly used in cooking.
That's brilliant. By planting 薄荷 mint, 百里香 thyme, 迷迭香 rosemary, and 檸檬香茅 lemongrass, I can save a lot because buying 香草 from supermarkets are very expensive.
I like 蘆薈 too. 蘆薈 is easy to plant and have a lot of functions.
What is 蘆薈?
蘆薈 is aloe vera. It can be used as cosmetics, medicine, and food.
That sounds good too. Flora, I also want to have some flowers at home. Do you have any recommendation?
How about 薰衣草 lavender? I love its nice purple color and sweet calming smell. 玫瑰 roses can definitely make your place more elegant too. 太阳花 sunflower is also a good choice, which brings energy into your home.
Oh, I love all of them. I will get some 薰衣草 lavender for my room, 玫瑰 roses for the living room, and 太阳花 sunflowers for the kitchen then.
Sounds good. Let's go.